Chapter 1 22 Years Later. I'm dreaming of the boy in the tree, and at the exact moment I'm about to hear the answer that I've been waiting for. The flashlights yanked me out of what could have been one of those perfect moments of clarity people talk about for the rest of their lives. If I was prone to dramatics, I could imagine my sighs would have been heard from the boundaries of the school to the town down below. The question begs to be asked, why the flashlights? Turning on the lights next to my bed would have been much less conspicuous and dramatic, but if there is something I've learned in the past 5 years, it's that melodrama plays a special part in the lives of those at the Jellicoe School. So while the mouths of the Year 12s move and their hands threaten, I think back to my dream of the boy, because in it I found solace. I like that word. I'm going to make it my word of the year. There's just something about that boy that makes me feel like I belong, long to be. Weird word, but semantics aside, it is up there with solace. Somewhere in that hazy world of neither here nor there, I'll be hanging off that tree, legs hooked over the branch, hands splayed, grabbing at air that's intoxicated and perfumed with the sweet smell of oak. Next to me, always, is that boy. I don't know his name and I don't know why he comes calling, but he's there every time, playing the same music on one of his Discmans for tapes from the 80s. A song about flame trees and long-time feelings of friends left behind. The boy lets me join in, and I sing the same line each time. His eyes are always watery at that point, and it stores a nostalgia in me that I've no reason to own, and it makes me ache all the same. We never quite get to the end of the song, and each time I wake, I remind myself to ask him about those last few bars, but somehow I always forget. Tell him stories, lots of them, about Jellicoe's school students and the townies and the cadets from a school in Sydney. I tell him about the war between all 3 of us for territory, and I tell him about Hannah, who lives in the unfinished house by the river at the edge of Jellicoe School, and of the manuscript of hers I've read with its car wreck. Hannah, who's too young to be hiding away from the world and too smart to be merely organizing weekend passes for the kids in my dorm. Hannah, who thinks she has me all worked out. I tell him of the time when I was 14, just after a hermit whispered something in my ear and then shot himself, when I went in search of my mother, but got only halfway there. I tell him that I blame the cadet for that. The tree sobs uncontrollably when I tell him about the hermit and my mum. Yet his eyes light up each time I mention Hannah, and every single time he asks, "Taylor, what about the brigadier who came searching for you that day? Whatever became of him?" I try to explain that the brigadier is of no importance to my story, and that the brigadier was just some sort of top brace high up in the army who had been invited to train the cadets that year. But the boy always shakes his head as if he knows better. At times like this time, when he kneels forward to remind me of what the hermit has whispered. He leans so far forward that I catch a scent of tea tree and sandalwood, and I strain my ears to listen so I'll never forget. I strain my ears needing to remember, because somehow, for reasons I don't know, what he say will answer everything. He leans forward, and in my ear he whispers, "It's time." I hesitate for a moment or two, just in case the dream is still floating around, and I can slip back into it for the crucial moment. But the flashlights hurt my eyes, and when I'm about to push away, I can see the ignorant impatience in the faces of the Year 12s. "If you want us to scare you, Taylor Markham, we'll scare you." I climbed out of bed and pulled on my jumper and boots and grabbed my inhaler. "You're wearing flannel," I reminded him flatly. "How scared should I be?" They walked me down the corridor, past the senior rooms. I see the other Year 11 girls, my classmates, standing at the door watching me. Some, like Raphaelia, try to catch my eye, but I don't allow it to hold. Raphaelia makes me sentimental, and there's no place in my life for sentimentality. But for one moment, I think of those first nights in the dorm 5 years ago, when Raphaelia and I lay side by side. She listened to a tale that I have no memory of today about my life in the city. I'll always remember the look of horror on her face. "Taylor Markham," she had said, "I'm going to say a prayer for you." And although I wanted to mock her and explain I didn't believe in anything or anyone, I realized that no one had ever prayed for me before, so I let her. I followed the seniors down 2 flights of stairs to a window, the supposedly the least conspicuous one in the house. I've actually mastered the climb down from my own window, but I've never dared to tell anyone. It gives me more freedom and means that I don't have to explain my every move to the Year 7 spies in the dorm. I started off as one of those. They handpick you young out here. A thorn presses into my foot through the soft fabric of my boot, and I let it for a moment, pausing until they push me forward. I walk ahead, allowing them to play out their roles. The path that leads to the meeting hut is only distinguishable in the pitch black by the sensation of soft dirt under my feet. In the darkness, one of the seniors stumbles behind me, but I keep on walking, my eyes closed, my mind focused. Ever since they moved me from the communal dorms to my own room in Year 7, I've been trained to take over, just like the protégés in the other room. 5 years is a long time waiting, and somehow during that time I got bored. So as we reach the hut and enter, and I feel the waves of hostility smack me in the face, I begin to plan my escape from Jellicoe. Except that this time I'll not be 14, and there won't be a cadet who tags along. There'll just be me. According to Dickens, the first rule of human nature is self-preservation, and when I forgive him for writing a character as pathetic as Oliver Twist, I'll thank him for that advice. Candles illuminate the canvas-covered dirt floor, where the seniors from all the houses sit with their successors waiting for the verdict. This is officially the passing on ceremony, the one in charge says. You keep it simple. It's not a democracy. Whoever's in charge rules. They can only be superseded if 5 of the 6 house leaders sign a document deeming him or her incompetent. The one in charge has final say in what gets traded with the cadets and the townies. He or she only has the right to surrender to the enemy. Richard of Murrumbidge House makes a sound as if he's holding back a laugh. I don't know whether it's because he's sure the job is his, or because he's laughing at the idea that anyone could ever surrender to the enemy, but the sound grates on me. The important thing is to never give anything away, the one in charge continues. Especially not to teachers or dorm staff. Every time your dorm coordinator calls a meeting, just sit there and look like you're taking in every word. But don't let them ever understand what's going around here after hours. Which is, Ben Cassidy asked politely. I beg your pardon, says one of his seniors. Well, what exactly does go on here after hours? What are you getting at? The senior persists. Ben shrugs. Everyone's always going on about what goes on after hours, but nothing actually seems to be going on at all, except maybe meetings like these. To begin with, the one in charge says, don't discuss these meetings. Well, it's not as if they don't know what's going on, Ben continues. This one time I was with Hannah and we were eating our scones and she was asking me 101 questions as per usual. He looks around at the other protégés as if we're interested. She makes them herself. Beautiful. Well, we got to talking, and I said, Hannah, you've lived in this house ever since I've been here, and it's got the best bird's eye view of all the houses. So what do you think goes on here out of school hours? That's a great question to be asking someone who's constantly speaking to the principal, Richard says. You're a stupid prick, Cassidy. We didn't have much to choose from, the leader of Clarence House says, sending Ben a scathing look and whacking him across the back of his head. Ben looks resigned. In Year 7 he got bashed up at least once a month, mostly by his seniors. He'd go visit Hannah, which I found irritating, because he had his own adult looking after his house, and the one thing I hated in Year 7 after living with Hannah in her unfinished house for the whole year before was sharing her with the rest of the school. The revelation that she's a question asker is more irritating. Hannah never asks me anything. Type of scones? I ask him. He looks up at me, but his senior whacks him again. Okay, I'm over this, Richard says impatiently. Can we just get to the point? Those in charge look at one another, and then back to us, and then at me. I hear the curses instantly, the anger, the disbelief, the hiss of venom under the breath of almost everyone in the room except the seniors. I know what is about to be said, but I don't know how I feel. Just numb like always, I guess. You're not a popular choice, Taylor Markham, the one in charge says, cutting through the voices. You're too erratic, have a bad track record, and running off with one of the enemy, no matter how young you were, was bad judgment on your part. But you know this place inside out. You've been here longer than anyone else, and that's the greatest asset anyone can have.